guys, so today I wanted to talk to you about an upgrade that we made to our boat at the beginning of the season, and that's the Mente Marine Automatic Trim Control, or ACS as they call it, which stands for Attitude Control System. It's basically automatic trim tabs for your boat. We installed it on our 2003 Sundancer 260, which has Bennett hydraulic trim tabs on it. So I wanted to do just an overview, give you my thoughts, and then tell you how it worked out for us, what our experience has been so far for the 2021 boating season, which is just coming to an end. The automatic trim controller, the ACS, is going to engage. It's going to come into play anytime the weight shifts on your boat. So if passengers move from one side to the other, maybe the wind changes directions and it's pushing your boat one way or the other, or maybe you've got waves hitting your boat on one side or the other, and it's just making your boat not run perfectly straight and level, which most boats in our size range aren't going to run straight or level. You almost always have to make some sort of trim adjustments to make your ride a little smoother, to make things a little more leveled out, and just make for a more enjoyable ride. The ACS is pretty much always engaged when your boat is in motion. There's a light on there. The auto light lets you know that it's in an automatic mode, and it's just kind of doing its thing. If you want to take over and manually control it, you can. However, in our experience so far, at least this year, I haven't had one scenario where we wanted to manually take over, where the ACS wasn't doing what it was supposed to do, or it was trying to correct too much one way or the other, or any scenario where automatic wasn't working for us. The ACS is going to constantly monitor your boat as you make turns, as conditions change, and it's going to adapt accordingly to any changing conditions that you may encounter. It's going to always keep you in those ideal cruising conditions, keep you and your passengers happy. It'll help you get on the plane faster if you're starting from an idle or a no-wake zone. And nobody's upset when you get a little bit increased fuel mileage. Some of the benefits there, it's going to get you up on plane faster. When you're on plane, your boat is more fuel efficient. You're riding up on the water as opposed to pushing through the water as much when you're at more of like a idle, no-wake speed. It's also going to help keep you on plane when you start to slow down, and your boat's going to want to dip back down into the water and come off the plane. The ACS will keep the nose of your boat pointed up for longer, if possible, before you get down to that speed where it eventually just can't keep you up on plane and the nose of your boat will drop back down in the water. In my opinion, it really lets you focus your attention on other things. Focus on maybe your chart plotter if you don't know where you're going. Focus on other boating traffic. Focus on your passengers. Takes your attention away from needing to constantly mess around with your trim tabs. It's one less thing to worry about. It makes riding your boat more enjoyable, more comfortable, and in my opinion, more safe as well. Like I said earlier, it's going to help you get on plane faster. So when you take off from a slow or no speed, it's going to push the trim tabs down a little bit to bring the nose of your boat up out of the water a little faster than you normally get out of the water, and then once your nose is up out of the water and you're on plane, it'll bring you back down to the attitude that you want your boat to be at for your cruising speed. So it's not going to keep that nose up that extra height the entire time, just once you get up off plane, and then it'll cut back down to where you have it set at in the memory. Like I said earlier, if you're coming off on plane, or maybe you're coming into a harbor, you're coming through some boat traffic and you want to slow down, there's always that point where you slow down too much and you come off plane and then you're pushing through the water. You're not riding on plane. You're not getting that efficient planing that you want out of a planing hull boat. So how that works is once your boat starts to slow down, the ACS will detect that, and it will keep your nose up by pushing your trim tabs down to help you stay on plane longer as you're coming into slower speeds. Eventually, obviously, you're going to slow down enough if you continue to slow down and you'll drop off plane, but it'll help potentially extend that, or it may just help you keep cruising at that slower speed as long as you don't drop down too low, and it'll keep you up on plane still. Once you do drop off plane, the ACS will detect that, and it will no longer keep trying to adjust the trim tabs, keep trying to shift your boat from one direction to the other, because once you're off plane, the trim tabs lose their effect and they're not really doing anything, so there's no sense for the ACS to continue to adjust those trim tabs. The ACS also detects when you're turning your boat, so if you're cutting to the left or you're cutting to the right, it senses that, and you don't want to adjust your trim tabs when you're turning because you don't really know the effect that that's going to have on the boat, and you don't want the ACS to adjust the trim tabs either and try and fight you when you're trying to turn the boat and it's trying to push you one way or the other way. You just don't want that. So after you come through that turn, come back out of it, and it senses that you're no longer making that turn, it's going to kick back in and start adjusting your boat to where it needs to be. The ACS fits most popular trim tabs out there, whether hydraulic or electrical mechanical. I know the hydraulic Bennett trim tabs on our boat were fully supported. I didn't have to make any crazy modifications or anything like that, so that's really awesome that it will work out there on a lot of boats. I'm sure it'll work on a lot of Sea Rays, whether you've got different types of drives. I know they support a lot of different types of drives out there, whether you got a stern drive, inboard, outboard. The ACS also can detect when you're in really rough seas, so it's not constantly trying to fight as you're getting pushed around by waves, or if you're in a lot of chop, it'll almost kind of, as I understand it, slow down the corrections that it's making, so it's not making them so abruptly that your boat's constantly all over the place. It detects that you're constantly cutting through big chop, big waves, so it will try and make that more enjoyable as it could get, as we all know, is some of that more inclement weather can turn out to be. At least on our boat, on our 2003 260, the installation was a breeze. One of the biggest selling points for me for this versus some other automatic trim control systems out there is there's no need to run sensors back to your trim cylinders. You don't need to run any additional wires or put in any additional equipment or anything like that. You're just pulling out the old trim buttons using the existing wiring. You may have to maybe snip the ends off or strip some more jacket off of the cabling, but it was very minimal installation, about as easy as I could expect, and surprisingly worked perfectly after installation. Anybody can do it with an average weekend mechanic level mechanical skills. You don't need to be a boat mechanic, you don't need to be an electrician, you don't need to be super tech savvy. It's very straightforward in my opinion, and something I would definitely encourage you to research and potentially try and install yourself. Save yourself the money for paying someone to do it. It's not complicated. So I highly recommend you try that out. Overall, I'd say it's possibly it's definitely the best upgrade we've made to our boat so far. And I honestly can't think of anything else that we could do to our boat besides upgrading to a bigger boat at this point. It's just made our lives so much nicer. My wife is so much happier. The boat's always level. I never have to think about it. It's just always keeping the boat level no matter what conditions are changing. And we've been out there on some rough days this year. 3 to 5 foot chop easily, which for our boat is decently rough weather out there. So, I'll take a page out of Steve Jobs' book, and honestly the best way I can think of to describe it, and you may laugh, is it's just magical. I know that sounds corny to say, but it really just works. And if you didn't know that your boat had trim tabs, or you didn't understand what they do or how they affect your boat, and you had the ACS on your boat, you wouldn't even know that it's doing its job. It's that good that you just don't even know that it's there. It's there in the background, it's doing its thing, and you don't even have to think about it. It just works. It just lets you focus on driving your boat. It's much more enjoyable. It's smoother. Your passengers will love it. And I can't honestly say enough good things about it. Thanks for checking this video out, guys. If you found it useful, if you found it helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know this is really early on in this channel's life, but we hope to make a lot more useful content that maybe nobody else is doing. A lot of freshwater boating stuff, a lot of Great Lakes boating stuff, and Sea Ray boats. Our little group of boaters all has Sea Ray boats. A few other videos we're working on is an LED conversion, LED lights. Everyone's always out there asking, what LED lights do I need to put in my boat? They don't make it very easy to figure out which bulb numbers, which bulb types you need for various things, whether it's your nav light, your gauge cluster lights, your interior lights, you name it. So I'm trying to make a video out there at least for the Sea Ray 260 guys, so you'll know which bulbs you may need for which fixtures, and hopefully apply for some other make year model boats out there. Another video I'm working on is radio conversion. At least in our 2003 boat, we had a 6-disc CD changer with an old Clarion stereo, so it was a really tough choice for me to decide to get rid of that 6-disc CD changer, but I decided to rip it out and put a Fusion stereo in there. So these newer radios are a lot smaller form factor than these older radios, so you're trying to fit a smaller rectangular sized radio into a bigger opening, and how do you secure it in there? So I'll be talking a little bit about how I solved that problem, and hopefully can help some of you guys solve that problem as well. So like I said, hit that subscribe button if you want to find out more about that. Really appreciate it. It helps us out, and it helps encourage us to keep doing what we're doing. Thanks, guys.